So welcome Inga to this shorter term but high impact discussion.
Thank you.
Thank you for responding to this invitation. You have worked on a very meaningful aspect in our discipline. Would you like to present yourself and your research main interest, and then we'll go on talking about your findings?
Yes, I will do that. My name is Sigfridur Inga Karlsdottir, and I'm always called Inga. And I'm a midwife and a nurse, and working now as a professor at the School of Health at the University of Akureyri, Iceland. And my main research areas has been childbearing women's perspective on caring and uncaring encounters, the primacy of the good midwife and midwifery service, women's experience of childbirth, and women's experience of traumatic birth. So that has been part of my research area for the last, I think, 20 years or so.
Quite a big time.
Yeah. And I have taken part in both Scandinavian and European health research networks for decades, and I really, really love our cost action that we are doing now. The perinatal mental health and birth-related trauma, maximizing best practice and optimize outcomes. And I think it's been a really good experience of taking part in this action. And if you want to know a little bit more, I have a broad experience of clinical experience also. I've both been working at a labor ward in antenatal clinics. I have assisted women in home birth and in antenatal classes for expectant parents for many years with a wonderful yoga teacher. So just to tell you a little bit about myself.
Yeah. Well, I know that it will take hours to speak about the main points of such a rich life and work experience that you bring to this discussion.
Thanks.
So thank you for all the work you have been doing all these years. And I'm really very curious to ask you, what were the challenges that you had met or suspected, and which are behind the 20-something years of work in this field?
It's always some challenges that you see in front of you when you are starting a new action. And I think it has given me so much more than it has been a challenge, because working with different professions from different countries, both young and older and more experienced one, it has given me so much broader perspective on an issue that we are studying than I had before. So it has been much more beneficial than it has been a challenge. And it also gives you, when you're not, because I'm much more used to work with midwives than midwives and obstetricians when I'm doing my research or I'm working in a clinic. But working with so broad perspective of different disciplines, it gives you somehow a very new and broad perspective on the issue you are studying. And also we have been so privileged to have consumers groups or participants from a consumer group from many countries. The voice of the women that we are and men that we are looking at the service and trying to figure out what is really that matters to them, so they experience a positive childbirth instead of a traumatic experience. And I think looking at it from many different perspectives, it was a challenge in the beginning, but now after this 4 years of this construction, I think it was a brilliant thing to do, to bring different disciplines together, to study together and write papers and write recommendations for politicians, for clinicians, for people who use the service. I think it was a brilliant thing to do, even it was a little bit challenging in the beginning. Right. So I think because I've been studying women's experience of childbirth for maybe 25 years, very often about what is important for women, that and how they want midwives to be, what they need from their midwife during antenatal, during childbirth and afterwards, because I have published a chapter in a book for midwifery students about what it is to be a professional midwife from the women's perspective. And I think it's so important to start right in the education of the healthcare professions, to put the spotlight on what the women think is important, and to measure things that women think is important, not just from an obstetrician point of view or from a midwife point of view or a psychologist point of view, but from the women who are using the service. I think it's so important to do that. And of course, it's a challenge, but it's also very rewarding.
Yeah. So actually, Inga, could you kindly bring us this understanding now? When during the 25 years of working with people and mothers or will-be mothers, what did you hear from their stories, and what did you hear now in this action? What is a midwife that actually kindly serves the needs of a woman? What is it?
I just want to tell you about that. We were in my group, working group 1. We were writing papers about to form a definition of a traumatic childbirth experience.
Yeah.
And we discussed in the beginning, really, and that was a challenge, really.
Yeah.
Is a negative childbirth experience, is it just negative or positive? Or is it a spectrum of feelings that they are experience? And we did a rapid review about women's positive experience of childbirth. And in that review, the women's experience is very much about the interactions with the caregiver, very often a midwife. And there were 4 main components in this review that came out as the strongest components in women's feeling of this interaction. And it was important to them that they felt supported, that they were in control, that they felt safe, and they felt respected. And through these interactions with the caregiver, that was a very big thing in experience positive childbirth. So it was not just if it was a cesarean section or if it was a vaginal birth or if it was induced or not. It was the interaction all the time over during the childbirth with the caregiver. That was the most important thing in the experience of feeling positive, because some of the stories were so brilliant, like the woman who said, with my midwife with my side, I could do anything. I could face all the challenges of childbirth. But feeling on the other side, feeling abandoned, feeling not supported, feeling not safe for your life and your child's life, that leads to a negative childbirth experience. So it is not what happened, it's the interaction. And because a lot of women that I have interviewed during my research, they had told me so great stories about how they feel afterwards, if they are really feeling the positive experience of childbirth, because then they feel so much empowered. They feel strong, and they think, if I could manage childbirth, I can manage anything. I could face every challenge in life, because and it's a very strong feeling, really. And if you think about a new mother feeling empowered, feeling strong, feeling that she can do anything, it's a very different experience and a very different feeling that a mother has after the childbirth, if she has this feeling of strong woman. And for the child, and for the child, and for the development of the child, because as a lot of studies have shown, especially the first 1,000 days in child's life, if a newborn child have a mother feeling that way, how valuable and important it is for the health of the baby, and also for the health of the mother and the family, because it's so important, and we have not, research have not been had the spotlight on this issue, because there are not so many research about the positive thing. It's more about the consequences, the depression, the PTSD that women have after the childbirth, if they feel a negative experience, because then they are traumatized. And they have been afraid of their life, afraid of their, for example, afraid of their life, afraid of their child's life. They felt abandoned, they feel not supported, not safe. And that feeling is so long-lasting and has so much effect on their life and the child's and the family. So we are still not measuring women's experience of childbirth routinely, but we are measuring induction, we are measuring cesarean section, blood loss, episiotomies, and all kinds of things. And they are important also. But the importance of the experience, women's experience, is also so important. And we are not measuring it. And I think that's very strange.
Do you think, Inga, that this non-measuring women birthing women satisfaction, is it connected with the medicalization of childbirth?
Definitely, Olga. I would say that, and that's not good, because of course we should have good healthcare system to maximize the likelihood of health. But we cannot just look at the health as just life and death. In most, at least European countries, we should put the aim much higher than that. Just think about that. Maybe in developing countries where women are still dying of childbirth, a lot of women and a lot of children, then the emphasis is of course in trying to minimize this and trying to decrease the death. But in most European countries, we should be aiming for a lot more than that, and a childbirth experience is so important outcome of childbirth. We know a lot of studies about, for example, negative childbirth experience. Up to 30% of women experience childbirth as a negative thing. And we know a lot of what that causes to the health of the women and family. And we are more trying to find out ways to heal after a traumatic childbirth, how to build up some service for women and men that are traumatized after childbirth. But we have to also to put the emphasis on the positive thing and see how much we gain if we try to increase the likelihood of a positive childbirth, because then we don't have all the bad effects of a negative childbirth experience. And we don't have to deal with that if a woman have a positive childbirth experience. So we have to think about prevention, how through pregnancy and childbirth and postpartum period, we can put more emphasis on the empowerment, the empowering women, and how we can make them stronger and more healthy.
Actually,
yeah.
You speak about being more salutogenic rather than anything else, right?
Yeah.
Because it's been how many years now? Almost 70 years that salutogenesis started to grow, and we are still sticking to pathogenesis.
I published a paper so many years ago, Olga, that was about the journey through labor and birth. It was published in Midwifery in 1996 with my colleague, Professor Halldórsdóttir. And I think that was one of the papers that really put the spotlight on women's experience and how it could lead to a positive experience. And I think it's so many years since then, and you hear that it's still my passion.
Yes.
to maximize the likelihood of a positive childbirth. And when I finished my PhD, my PhD issue was in pain in childbirth from women's perspective. And when I started to talk about positive experience of pain in childbirth, a lot of people said that's not that issue. You cannot experience pain as positive. But a lot of women through these 25 years have been telling me about their positive experience of pain in childbirth. And then the pain was not the main issue. It was how they were supported through the pain, how they prepared for it, how they thought afterwards that they were strong, that they were able to work with the pain. And they were talking about the salutogenic perspective. They didn't mention it like that way because perhaps they don't know the theory of salutogenic, but they were talking about that. But a lot of people in the healthcare system, they said, no, you cannot have a positive experience of pain. But they maybe were not thinking about that. A lot of women, they talk about pain in childbirth in a very different way than other kind of pain, because this pain brings you your child. And if you know what's happening in your body, it makes more sense to work with it, but not against it. And I think it's the similar as talking about the positive experience of childbirth. If women understand what is happening in their body, and if through pregnancy and through their education and through the education of the healthcare professions, they know how to support the positive experience, how really important it is that women have some control, they feel safe, and they feel respected. If they really knew and understood how that is done, I think more and more emphasis would be in the future on the positive, on the tools we have, on to have the system that support women, that give them the feeling of safety, that give them the feeling of that they have control, and that all healthcare professions and providers treat them with respect. If our system would be now, managed that way, we would have a lot less experience of negative childbirth with very, very, many bad influences on women's health and their children.
You actually speak about an attitudinal change and a move from a fear-based work we offer into a new direction of trust-based professions or support systems. And this is very significant, and unfortunately history has shown that it takes longer than the protocols and the management of making something work now in order to secure or to how do we say it when we send the demon of death away? So if I may comment on that, first it was the fear of life because of the mortality rates being high. Then the new God to save medicalization, and then the God that was supposed to save lives became the new enemy because we lost the other things. And yes. Now we are at this point of revisiting and re-establishing a new harmony by aiming not at the death reduction, but quality increase, life quality increase. Is that so?
Yeah, definitely. And of course, I just want to emphasize that I think we have a good situation here in Iceland and good balance between the medical and midwifery and system, because for example, in Iceland we have 16% cesarean section, and that has been around 16% to 18% for the last decades. And according to WHO, that is what the cesarean section should be. The cesarean section rate should be around that. And we have been lucky, I think, to balance this together. So the medicalization, for example, in some countries, it's up to 40, 50, 60% cesarean section. And that is absurd that is, because women don't need so high cesarean section rate in any country. And that's something that should be, people should be asking for the medical reason for doing so many cesarean section. It's just not for the benefit of the health of the woman or the child, because cesarean section is a big operation.
Yes.
And yes, and that was one angle of the medicalization in some countries and in Europe, and people should try to stop this, decrease this, because that is not for the beneficial of the health of the women. And a lot of studies have been done about if the cesarean section raise benefit to a positive experience of childbirth, and it does not, up to some extent. Of course, we are talking about all childbirth, and some women really need a cesarean section because their health and their baby's health are in danger. And of course, the healthcare system should be planned that way to do a cesarean section when it's needed, and not to do it when it's not needed.
Yes.
And positive experience of childbirth is not about a cesarean section or not. It is not. It's about having the good quality service in their home country, having a supporting caregiver, for example, a midwife. In many cases, like in Iceland, there are midwives, 6 years of university education, and there's a midwife attending every childbirth. But what we have to do more, if I talk just from my perspective, is to planning the system and offer women, for example, continuity of care, because a lot of studies have been done that show that continuity of care is one of the most valuable thing in the system. It decreases cesarean section rate. It improves women's positive experience of childbirth, and but through that it would decrease the rate of PTSD, for example, increase breastfeeding, and so many other things. So the system should be more planned, so the women have connection with her caregiver, a connection so she can trust her for the life of herself and her children, trust that she have support, trust that she will be respected and safe during her childbirth. And that's part of the thing that we have to change. And it's 33 years since I graduated as a midwife, and I've never thought that we wouldn't yet be changing the system to that quality of care, because that's so important, and it would be for such a benefit for the healthcare system and the health of the women and their babies and their families if we should do that. And I think by making this two definition, as we did in this in my working group, to define a positive experience of childbirth on the one hand, and define negative experience of childbirth on the other one, from women's perspective, not from the professional perspective, but from a women's perspective. And they say what is important to them, what is the benefit to the beneficial of their health. I think it's so important to define this, to have done this definition of positive and negative childbirth from women's perspective. And I hope that this definition will be used very much in the future, because until now there have not been available that kind of definition. They have very often been from the healthcare perspective, and that's different.
Yeah.
We are very often talking about life and death, and defining things differently. But from a women's perspective, that is so important, because experience of childbirth is a very individualized experience. I can experience, if I attend a birth, I can experience the very smooth and very easy birth, even though the women are feeling it very negative. If I have not good relationship with that woman, if I've just come in 1 hour before in the delivery room, 1 hour before she has a problem and I has a problem connecting together, because she's in a lot of pain and she is very tired, and so my perception as a midwife can be a lot different from the perspective of a woman who is just been in labor for 20 hours and feeling a lot of pain, and she had felt maybe in no control and not safe and not respected. So she don't trust me after maybe 30 minutes. I don't have had the opportunity like I would have if I have known her perhaps during her pregnancy and all through her childbirth. So the connection between the caregiver and the women is so important. And we know that. We have a lot of studies. So I think in the system, when planning the service, the management committees and the guidelines that we use in the system, and the politicians who is deciding how the services should be that we provide, I think they should perhaps think about more that when people are planning the service we offer, because we ought to offer a quality professional service that maximize the likelihood of women's and her families' positive experience of childbirth. So that's my message.
Inga, can you bring to our attention the end result, the definition that you came up as a group, as a team, on traumatic childbirth, and then give us the definition of the positive childbirth?
Yes, I will do that, and I just want to we develop the definition by going through rapid review and to know what women have been talking about, or talking about what the study says that women say it's a trauma to childbirth. And we did a draft definition. Then we handed it out to clinicians and researchers from all over Europe, and we had feedback. After that, we did a new draft, and after that we sent it to a consumers group, women and consumer group in many countries, and asked them to criticize and ask them to tell us how they understand the concepts we were using, and then we came up with a final definition. After a lot of talk and a lot of work from different disciplines in different countries with very different background, and the definition of a traumatic childbirth experience. A traumatic childbirth experience referred to a woman's experience of interaction and or evident directly related to childbirth that caused overwhelming, distressing emotions and reactions, leading to short and or long-term negative impacts on women's health and well-being. That is the negative childbirth experience definition, and the positive childbirth experience, and we did it in a similar way, similar steps as we did for the traumatic experience definition. A positive childbirth experience refers to a woman's experience of interaction and evident directly related to childbirth that made her feel supported, in control, safe and respected. A positive childbirth can make women feel joy, confident and or accomplished, and may have short and long-term positive impacts on women's psychological well-being. So that is the definition that we came up with for a positive experience of childbirth from women's perspective.
And then knowing now what a positive childbirth experience is from women's perspectives, what are the corrective steps, or what are the changes that need to be introduced in different on different levels, education of new midwives, or updating the education of existing midwives, or management of birth spaces, or women ready to give birth, or thinking of starting their family. What are the changes that would be good and supportive, so that in the future we see this being the most important element?
Mhm. Of course, we hope that this definition will be used very much in the future. And we think also that there's a lot of things that we can change, and that we must change in the future. For example, the service we are offering, it should be aimed to that this should be one of the goals, the quality outcomes of childbirth, that women have a positive childbirth experience, and we have to measure it. We definitely we have to measure, and every hospital, every place where women are offered to come and have a childbirth, it should be measured if she has a positive experience or a negative childbirth experience, because that's part of offering a good quality service. And of course, I think that very often the system is not planned or offered, does not support the positive childbirth experience. And the emphasis is not on how can we make the service so women feel supported? How can we make a service so women feel respected? How can we make the service so they feel more safe and more in control? I think that's one of the things that we have to change. But we also have to think about the medicalization of childbirth. Because as I said earlier, 60%, 50% of cesarean section, there's no way that a woman's body, in 1 out of 2 incidents, the body is not capable of giving birth. The women are not capable of giving birth. And as I said, WHO have emphasized that those kind of figures about cesarean section, and we should maybe just also talk about induction of labor, because it has been rising, the incidence in almost every European countries. I think that every hospital should ask about, is our cesarean section rate normal? Is it good? Is it good service? Is it for the benefits of the women and the child and the family? Or for who is such a high cesarean section rate good? Because we must be critical in what kind of service we are offering. Childbirth is one of the highlights in many women's life, and it's a powerful tool to have effect on her health in with both positive or negative way. And we healthcare providers, we have that power, and we should think about if we want to be a professional health care provider, midwife, obstetrician, or anything else, we have to think about, are we doing the right thing? Are we offering a professional, good quality service? Why aren't they more emphasized on quality of care, on continuity of care? Are our figures about outcome of childbirth, are they normal? Are they too high, too low? And what is really our goal? And isn't it really our goal? Yes, of course, that the mother and childbirth are safe, and we are using the education we have in a professional way. But isn't it also that the women have a positive experience of childbirth, because we know that through that it affects her health. It make her more healthier as a new mother, and as a new mother fostering her child, taking care of the child. It's a very important outcome, and that's one of the things. And that should be part of the education we are offering to our healthcare providers. It's so important.
So I hear new evaluation and measurement systems need to be introduced. New questions have to be asked, and redesigning the services offered, and also a redesign of the educational curricula so that it makes space and provides for supporting the young professionals who want to enter the field, how to best serve the respect and the support and empowerment of the women and families, right?
Yeah, and perhaps I would like to add, because I think I've been very lucky to work as a midwife for decades, that my experience that I have been so lucky that the different healthcare providers, midwives and obstetrician, they are working in my clinic where I used to work, and I work a little bit now. We have been so lucky that we respect each other discipline. We work together for the beneficial of the women and her family and her spouse and her child. But I think in a lot of places there's a power struggle between disciplines. And I just say it out loud. It's a power struggle between disciplines. And as I have felt in this action, that different disciplines working together with mutual respect for the discipline and for the knowledge, something good happens.
Yes.
And I think very often that people should think more about, we all have something to add for the beneficial of the women's health and the family's health. And that should be our perspective, not just my profession's perspective, because we have obstetrician perspective, we have midwifery perspective, and we have the mother and spouse perspective. And those all three and more, of course, together, it's just what I know about working together, looking at the service from all that different perspective. That is for the beneficial of the health
And
and for the
actually,
beneficial of the experience.
And it's not only the professionals who are present or the people who are present at the moment a newcomer enters life, like the pediatrician, neonatologist,
Yes.
the obstetrician,
Yes.
the doula,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
the midwife. It's also the people who work in the background,
Yes.
architects,
Definitely.
architects and
Yeah.
provision managers and trainers and
Yes.
cleaners and
Yeah.
everybody. So
Everyone.
it's an orchestra that
Yeah.
needs to work in
Yeah.
tune and
Yeah.
harmony.
Yeah.
That's the beauty of collaboration.
Yeah. Yeah. I think so, and I think it's so important to have a mutual respect for each individual knowledge, not thinking about necessarily what kind of knowledge, because it's all important for the beneficial of the people we are offering the service.
So let's bring this to a conclusion by sending out clearly your message to the politicians.
We have a paper that will be published soon about recommendations after this this action. And I think it's very important when it will be out that we draw to the politicians' attention what we see from women's perspective that is important. And I think having these definitions in mind when planning the service, it's one of the things that is so important to do, and to make the healthcare system more from people's perspective in mind, and how we can use this information we have from this action, both from these studies about positive childbirth experience and definition and the negative ones, and how we can use them when we are doing guidelines, when we are deciding what money goes into the system that takes care of people around childbirth, because having a good start in life as a newcomer mother, as a newcomer father, or a newcomer individual taking care of a newborn child, it's so valuable for a good health in the future. So I think that's something important for the politicians to remember when they are taking when they are deciding what they are going to emphasize in our healthcare system or in our system. So that's maybe would be my message to them.
And to policymakers, especially those who make decision makers in birth centers or maternity hospitals or other mother or parent related services, what would be your message to them?
Yeah. I think very often the emphasis is very much on at the high risk and the high risk a service, but the low risk service, or as I would say rather the normal service or service you offer to everyone, that is also very important, because that supports being healthy. If you get a good service all the time, you are much more likely to be healthy than if you are not offering just the minimum service, thinking just about your physical health. You need also to emphasize the importance of supporting and service from not just from the physical point of view, and for like
the emotional or the mental,
the mental
or
health
relational
also. Yeah, definitely, and I think that's important to look at. And so the emphasis is not just about the high risk, it's about the service that is offered to everyone, and that's important.
And to the stakeholders like midwives anywhere, everywhere, what would be your message?
The message to my my colleagues midwives,
yes.
To fight for a continuity of care, to fight for the beneficial of the women and the families they are taking care of, and to plan the service according to studies and findings. We know how important it is that women feel supported, secure, safe, and respected, and also to work with other professions as much as they can. Not be just thinking about the midwifery perspective, but to look at it as a whole, as a they are one chain in everything, and they need other professions for the benefits of the people that they are taking care of, and to emphasize on the positive thing, on how to empower women or how to support health more, not just how to take care of women that are already high risk, but how through the pregnancy and birth they can maximize the likelihood of a normal birth, of that everything goes well, of that women will feel positive and empowered after the birth, for example.
That's perfect. And I left the last group. This is parents, mothers, giving birth to their children. What would be your message to them?
For them, it would be to prepare well, for example, for the pregnancy, for the birth, and to know more about how their mind, how their body works, because there's a lot of change going through a pregnancy and childbirth. And if women feel that they know more about the process, what's going on, they feel more secure. And because if you are afraid of something, all kinds of hormones rise in your blood and you get very, worried about all kinds of things. And but if you know more about what is happening, you feel much stronger. And somehow I think young women, they don't trust their body. They feel that their body cannot give birth to a child. But if they know why these all kinds of hormones pops up during pregnancy and how they work together, for example, during the pregnancy and during childbirth, and if they know what is happening in their body, they get more secure. So message, find good pages, educate yourself, put more trust on yourself and your body, be in good relationship with your spouse, your husband, your sister, or your mother, or your friend who is going to be supporting you through pregnancy and at birth. And that gives you more feeling that your body will be with you in the whole process, and you are going to manage, because that is a feeling that is so important and powerful and give you so much safety, and you will, in the end, when your child is born, it will be triumphant joy, even if it has been difficult, because of course pregnancy and childbirth are very often difficult thing to go through.
So, is there anything else you would like to add?
Just to thank you for this opportunity to talk about something that has been my passion for decades, and I am so delighted to be part of our action in the COST group, and I've got to know a lot of wonderful people that I've became friend with, and that have given me the extra thing. Plus, of course, all the new knowledge I have had, and I feel very privileged to be able to work with people who have the same interest in women's and parents' health as I do.
Thank you, Inga, for another so meaningful, short-term, high-impact discussion.
Thank you, Olga. It was my privilege.